Trust me.
In a few days, it'll all be over.
A stranger's hand clamped over my mouth, silencing my scream. A nurse's urgent whisper hissed in my ear. Hide. Wait. Trust me. My heart thundered, not just for my son, Robert, lying in a hospital bed. Something darker, something sinister, was unfolding in this sterile hallway. I was Doris, 66 years old, running toward room 312, where my only son fought for his life. 40 minutes earlier, a phone call had shattered my world. Robert's in the hospital. Accident. Come if you want. Scarlett, my daughter-in-law, had said coldly. Her voice, sharp as a blade, gave no details, no hint of how bad it was. I dropped the spoon into the soup I'd been stirring, my hands shaking. The kitchen faded as I grabbed my purse and coat, bolting out the door. The bus ride to the hospital felt endless, each stop a torment. My mind raced with images of Robert, my boy, my everything, hurt, unconscious, or worse. His childhood flashed before me, his first steps, his laughter, his tiny hand in mine. I'd given him everything, every piece of myself, as mothers do. The hospital's linoleum floor echoed under my shoes, a hollow, lonely sound. The disinfectant stung my throat, mixing with the panic choking me. My 66-year-old body felt ancient, each step heavier than the last. My heart pounded in my temples, my neck, my chest, screaming one word. Robert. Room 312. I had to find it. The numbers on the doors blurred. 308, 310. I was close, so close to seeing him, holding him, promising him it would be okay. That's what mothers do, isn't it? Fix the broken, heal the hurt, give everything. I'd sacrificed so much, my savings, my husband's inheritance, my own dreams. The house I'd bought for Robert, the $180,000 I'd gifted him for his business. All of it given freely because he was my son, because I trusted him. But Scarlett's voice on the phone haunted me, her tone dripping with disdain. She'd always treated me like a burden, an annoyance in her perfect life with my son. 7 years ago, when Robert introduced her, I thought her coldness was shyness. How naive I'd been, smiling through her slights, her dismissive glances. I'd washed her dishes, bought her gifts, watered her plants when they traveled. All to keep the peace, to make Robert happy, to be the mother he needed. But now, as I ran, something felt wrong, beyond Robert's accident. The hospital's fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting harsh shadows. I clutched my purse tighter, my fingers numb from gripping it. Room 311. I was almost there. I could breathe again, see him, hold him. Then that hand grabbed my arm, pulling me aside with startling strength. I stumbled, nearly crying out, but the nurse's hand muffled me. Her dark eyes burned with intensity, her uniform crisp, her badge reading Leticia Sanchez. Hide and wait, she whispered again, pushing me toward room 311's half-open door. Don't make a sound. Observe. Listen. You'll understand soon. Before I could protest, she was gone, her shoes clicking down the hall. I stood frozen in the dark, empty room, my breath shallow, my mind spinning. The smell of clean sheets and cold air conditioning filled the space. Why had she hidden me? Was I in danger? The idea seemed absurd. But her urgency, her fierce gaze, rooted me to the spot. I trusted her, though I didn't know why. Maybe because, in my desperation, her outstretched hand felt like salvation. Maybe because, after years of being invisible, someone was finally seeing me. I leaned against the wall, my legs trembling, my coat still damp from the evening chill. The room was silent, except for the hum of machines in the distance. An IV pole loomed like a skeleton, the curtains blocking all but a sliver of light. My heart slowed, but a new fear crept in, something heavy, unnamed, suffocating. What was happening? Why had Letitia stopped me from reaching my son? I waited, counting seconds that stretched into eternity. Then I heard them, voices outside, just beyond the thin wall. Scarlett's sugary tone, unmistakable, laced with something cruel. A man's voice, formal, unfamiliar, speaking in hushed urgency. They stopped right in front of room 312, inches from where I hid. My body stiffened, my breath caught, as their words began to unravel a nightmare. The voices outside room 312 sliced through the hospital's sterile silence. Scarlett's tone was smooth, confident, like she was discussing a business deal. "Are you sure no one will see us here?" the man asked, his voice low and cautious. I pressed myself against the wall, my heart hammering so loud I feared they'd hear it. Scarlett's laugh was sharp, like brittle glass shattering. "The old woman's on her way, but she'll take a while," she said dismissively. "They don't let just anyone through security that fast. We've got time." Old woman. She meant me. The words stung like a slap across the face. My hands trembled, clutching the edge of my coat to steady myself. I was Doris, 66 years old, reduced to a nuisance in her cold, calculating world. But I stayed silent, listening, as a chill settled deep in my bones. "Let's go over the documents again," the man said, his tone all business. "The house transfer needs to be ready before he wakes up." My breath caught. The house. My house. The one I'd bought with my husband's inheritance. $180,000. Every penny of his life insurance poured into a home for Robert. I'd put it in his name, a mother's gift, trusting him completely. No legal protections, no strings attached, just love, pure and reckless. "If he asks, you say he signed everything before the accident," the man continued. "Understood," Scarlett replied, her voice smooth as silk, dripping with intent. The house, the business, my sacrifices, now pieces in her twisted game. I remembered the day I handed Robert the deed, his eyes bright with gratitude. "Mum, you're amazing," he'd said, hugging me tightly. I'd smiled, thinking it was for his future, his dreams, his family. Now those dreams were being stolen, notarized in cold ink. "And the business?" Scarlett asked, her tone hungry, predatory. "The $200,000 in the joint account. I can transfer that too, right?" My stomach lurched. The $200,000. My money, loaned, no, given, to Robert. He'd called it an investment in his import company, promising it would grow. "Mum, you'll get it back when the business takes off," he'd said. I'd believed him, living frugally in my tiny apartment while he thrived. I turned off lights to save electricity, wore threadbare clothes, ate discount groceries. Meanwhile, Scarlett flaunted designer handbags, each worth months of my rent. Robert drove new cars, lived in a house with a pool while I scraped by. The business had grown, contracts signed, profits rolling in, but I saw none of it. I never asked because mothers don't. We give, we hope, we wait. But now I heard the truth, raw and ugly, in Scarlett's casual cruelty. "Technically, it's tricky since you're not the account holder," the man said. I pictured him, a lawyer, no doubt, in a sleek suit, hands clean of real work. But if he doesn't wake up, or wakes with severe cognitive damage, He paused, letting the words hang like a guillotine. You can request temporary guardianship. Then you'll control everything. Everything. The house, the accounts, the business, my life's savings. If he doesn't wake up, Scarlett echoed, her voice devoid of grief. It was a statement, not a fear, a goal, not a tragedy. My legs buckled. I slid down the wall, the cold linoleum biting through my skirt. I pressed my hand to my mouth, stifling a sob that threatened to betray me. This wasn't an accident. This wasn't fate. This was murder, planned and precise. My son, my Robert, was being erased for money, for greed, for her victory. And her? Scarlett asked, her voice sharp, venomous. The meddling old woman? She meant me again, her disdain cutting deeper each time. Can she claim anything legally? She pressed, as if I were a pest to be squashed. The lawyer's pause was agonizing, filled with the rustle of papers. Legally, no, he said finally. She's not on any documents. Not on the house. Not on the business. Not on the accounts. She's nothing, he said. Just the mother-in-law, a spectator. Nothing. The word echoed, hollowing out my chest. 66 years of life, 40 years of marriage, 38 years raising Robert. My husband gone too soon from a heart attack, leaving me to carry on alone. I'd poured every ounce of love, every dollar into my son's future. And now I was nothing. A ghost in my own story, erased by her ambition. Scarlett's laugh came again, dry and triumphant, like rustling dead leaves. Perfect, she said. Then we stick to the plan. My hands shook so violently I had to hug myself to keep from falling apart. I've been slipping the crushed pills into his orange juice every morning, she said. My heart stopped. Pills, poison, in my son's morning juice. Just a little more each week, she continued, casual as if discussing the weather. Half a tablet extra now. The doctors think it's stress, poor diet. No one suspects. I wanted to scream, to burst through the door, to claw her eyes out. My son, my baby, who'd slept in my arms, who'd trusted her with his life. She was killing him sip by sip, while he smiled at her across the breakfast table. Here at the hospital it's even easier, she said, her voice chillingly calm. I add it to his IV when the nurses are on rounds. No one questions the wife. They bring me coffee, tell me to stay strong, she added, almost amused. It's almost comical. In a few days his heart will give out. Natural. Common. Statistics are on our side, she said, as if death were a game she'd already won. My vision blurred with tears, but I couldn't cry, couldn't make a sound. The lawyer, Mark, she called him, spoke again. I know nothing about the hospital plan. Officially, we never had this talk, he said, his voice clipped, professional. Crystal clear, Scarlett replied. You're a genius, Mark. I'll pay you well. Papers shuffled, footsteps receded, his expensive shoes clicking on the linoleum. Scarlett stayed, her presence heavy, like a predator lingering over its prey. Then she spoke, softer now, to herself or perhaps to Robert, unconscious next door. Poor fool, she whispered, her words dripping with contempt. You thought you won me with cheap flowers and empty promises. I never loved you, not a single day. My heart shattered, each word a shard embedding deeper. You had what I needed, she continued, a stupid mother with money, a growing business, a paid-off house, and enough naivety to sign it all over. You were the perfect target, she said, her voice cold as the hospital air. 7 years. 7 years of lies, of playing the devoted wife. I remembered their wedding, her radiant smile, Robert's joy. I'd thought she loved him. I'd thought he was happy. How had I missed it? The signs, the distance, the subtle poison in her glances. "And you, meddling old lady," she said, as if sensing me through the wall. "When this is over, I'll erase you from our lives forever. You won't even see his grave. Legally, you're nothing." Her words were knives, each one carving away at my existence. I'd tried to love her, for Robert's sake, swallowing her insults, her indifference. I'd washed her dishes, smiled through her criticisms, bought her gifts she discarded. I'd been the perfect mother-in-law, invisible, accommodating, desperate for peace. And this was my reward, a plot to kill my son, to steal my legacy, to erase me. Her heels clicked as she walked away, entering Robert's room with a soft door click. I sat there, crumpled on the floor, the weight of her betrayal crushing me. My son was being murdered, not by accident, but by design. And I, the stupid mother, had been blind, until now. Letitia, the nurse, had seen it. She'd saved me from walking into Scarlett's trap. But what now? My mind spun with rage, fear, and a burning need to act. I was nothing, she'd said, but I was still a mother, and a mother would fight, even if it cost her everything. The hospital room felt like a tomb, its silence suffocating me. I sat on the cold floor of room 311, my body trembling from Scarlett's words. My son, Robert, was being poisoned, slowly, deliberately, by his own wife. Her voice still echoed in my mind, cold and victorious, planning his death. The house, the business, my life's savings, all pieces in her cruel chess game. I was nothing, she'd said, a meddling old woman with no legal claim. But I wasn't nothing. I was his mother, and I would not let her win. The door creaked open, and my heart leapt into my throat. It was Letitia, the nurse, her face etched with urgency and resolve. She slipped inside, closing the door softly, and flicked on a dim corner lamp. Her badge gleamed faintly. Letitia Sanchez, specialized nurse. She knelt before me, her warm hands grasping my icy ones. "Breathe, Doris," she said, her voice steady but kind. "I know what you heard is monstrous. I know you're in shock. But I need you to focus. Your son doesn't have much time." Her words were a lifeline, pulling me from the abyss of panic. She was right. Collapsing now wouldn't save Robert. I took a ragged breath, then another, forcing air into my lungs. My heart still raced, but my mind began to clear. "How did you know?" I whispered, my voice hoarse, barely audible. How had she known to hide me, to suspect Scarlett's sinister plan? Letitia sat beside me, her back against the wall, her eyes distant with pain. "I've been caring for Robert during his outpatient visits," she began. "For 3 weeks he came in every few days, looking worse each time. Extreme fatigue, dizziness, nausea, irregular heartbeats, symptoms no one could pin down. The doctors called it stress, overwork, maybe poor diet. But I'd seen those signs before," she said, her voice tightening. "My sister died 4 years ago, poisoned by her husband. He used anticoagulants, small doses over months, until her body gave out. Her eyes glistened with unshed tears, an old wound torn open. I couldn't save her," she said softly. "By the time we knew, it was too late. But with Robert, I saw the pattern. I couldn't ignore it." She explained how she'd grown suspicious of Scarlett a week ago. She was too calm, too composed for a wife whose husband was collapsing. No tears, no desperation, just questions about test results and legal procedures. She asked about guardianship if Robert became incapacitated, Letitia said. What wife asks that while her husband's still breathing? I nodded, my chest tight with the weight of Scarlett's betrayal. Letitia had dug deeper, comparing Robert's old blood tests to recent ones. She pulled out her phone, showing me charts I couldn't fully grasp. Red lines spiked and plummeted, warning signs marked with bold alerts. His levels of certain substances were off, she said. Not naturally. It's consistent with intentional poisoning sustained over time. My hands shook as I stared at the screen, the numbers screaming danger. I took my suspicions to Dr. Stevens, head of toxicology, she continued. He's the only one I trusted here. He agreed to investigate quietly. But we needed proof, hard evidence to catch her in the act. She swiped to another app on her phone, revealing a recording. I recorded their conversation, she said, her voice fierce with purpose. Every word Scarlett said to that lawyer, every detail of her plan. I stared at the phone, its glowing screen a weapon against Scarlett's lies. She'd recorded it all. Scarlett's confession about the pills, the IV, the murder. I knew you'd come today, Letitia said. Scarlett mentioned it this morning. She was annoyed, complaining to the nurses about the meddling mother-in-law. I waited in the hallway, saw you running, desperate to reach Robert. I had to stop you, to protect you from walking in blind. And I had to get her to confess on tape. She did, every damning word. Tears welled in my eyes, gratitude mixing with terror. This woman, a stranger, had risked everything to save my son. Thank you, I choked out, my voice breaking. Thank you, Letitia. Don't thank me yet, she said, her tone resolute. We're not done. We need more evidence, physical proof to seal her fate. Dr. Stevens is analyzing Robert's IV bag right now, she explained. If it's tampered with, we'll call the police immediately. But we need the pills she's using, something tangible. Where would she keep them? I asked, my mind racing to keep up. Her purse, maybe her car, Letitia said. She's arrogant. She feels untouchable. She wouldn't think anyone's onto her, so she's likely careless. I nodded, a plan forming through the fog of my fear. Letitia stood, pulling me to my feet, her grip firm and reassuring. Listen carefully, sir, she said, her eyes locking onto mine. You're going back to that room. You're going to act like you know nothing. You'll hug Scarlett if you have to, cry, play the desperate mother she expects. My stomach twisted at the thought of touching her, pretending with her. But I could do it. I'd been pretending for years, swallowing her insults. Meanwhile, Letitia continued, I'll alert hospital security. I'll have them check the hallway cameras, document every time she's been alone with Robert. I'll make sure she doesn't touch that IV bag again. Her plan was precise, a battle strategy against a predator. There's one more thing, she said, her voice dropping to a whisper. Don't tell Robert anything yet, even if he wakes up. He might not believe you. He might think you're jealous, exaggerating. She's had 7 years to poison his mind against you, not just his body. Her words hit hard, a truth I'd avoided facing. Robert had grown distant, cold, annoyed by my presence these past years. Cancelled lunches, forgotten birthdays, excuses about being too busy. I'd blamed work, stress, his new life with Scarlett. But it was her, whispering lies, turning my son against me. She's built a narrative, Letitia said, that he's sick from overwork. She's made him believe it's his fault, that the doctors are overreacting. If you accuse her now, he might defend her. We'd lose our chance. I nodded, swallowing the pain of knowing she was right. I wanted to shake Robert awake, scream the truth until he saw her for what she was. But love blinds, and Scarlet had woven her web tightly around him. I can do this, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. I'll pretend. I'll keep her there until the police arrive. Letitia's eyes softened, a flicker of admiration in them. You're stronger than you know, Doris, she said. Promise me, I said, my voice fierce with resolve. Promise she won't win. Promise my son will live. I promise, Letitia said, her voice like steel. She'll lose everything, and I'll make sure she pays for every drop of poison. She peeked into the hallway, ensuring it was clear, then nodded for me to go. I stepped out, my legs shaky, but my purpose clear. The hallway buzzed with activity, nurses, doctors, families lost in their own dramas. I approached room 312, each step a battle against the urge to run. My hand touched the cold door handle, my heart pounding with dread. I had to face her, the woman who'd planned my son's death. I had to smile, to lie, to keep her from suspecting. For Robert, I would become the mother she underestimated. For Robert, I would play her game and win. I pushed open the door to room 312, my heart a drumbeat of dread and determination. The room was larger than I'd imagined, filled with the sterile hum of machines. Monitors beeped softly, their green lines tracing Robert's fragile life. IV bags hung like silent sentinels, dripping what I now knew could be poison. In the center, on a stark white bed, lay my son, Robert, looking so small, so broken. His skin was grey, his lips cracked, dark circles carved deep under his eyes. This wasn't the man who'd carried my groceries just weeks ago, strong and vibrant. This wasn't the boy who'd laughed as he rode his bike, shouting, "Look, Mom!" He was a shell, ravaged by the poison his own wife had fed him. And there she was, Scarlet, sitting beside him, holding his hand with practiced tenderness. Her brown hair was perfectly styled, her makeup flawless, her cream dress expensive. Those green eyes, once so captivating, now gleamed with a predator's calm. She was playing the devoted wife, a role honed over 7 years of lies. When she saw me, her face shifted in an instant, a mask of sorrow snapping into place. Her eyes welled with tears, her lips trembled. She was a flawless actress. "Doris," she said, her voice breaking as she stood to embrace me. I forced myself to hug her back, my arms stiff, my skin crawling at her touch. Her floral perfume choked me, a sickly blend of roses and deceit. "Thank you for coming," she whispered, her breath warm against my shoulder. "I know it was a long trip, 2 buses, but Robert needs you here." Liar. She didn't want me here. She'd called to keep up appearances, to ensure no one questioned her when Robert died, as she'd planned. I pulled back, wiping real tears she'd mistake for grief over my son. "What happened?" I asked, my voice trembling, exactly as she'd expect. She sat back down, resuming her role, her hand clutching Robert's lifeless one. "He was at the office," she began, her tone heavy with feigned worry. "His colleagues said he turned pale, started sweating, felt chest pain. They thought it was a heart attack, called an ambulance right away." She paused, dabbing at a tear that never fell, her performance seamless. "The doctors say his heart is weak. that he's been under too much stress. I told him to slow down, that money isn't worth his health. But you know him. She gave a sad smile, as if we shared some intimate understanding of Robert. Stubborn, like when he was a kid, she added, her words a calculated hook. She was drawing me in, making me feel like we were allies in loving him. I bit my lip, tasting blood, to keep from screaming the truth at her. What do the doctors say now? I asked, moving closer to Robert's bed. I took his other hand, cold and still, my thumb tracing his knuckles. They say the next 48 hours are critical, she replied, her voice low, intimate. If he wakes up with no brain damage, he could recover with time. She paused, her tone shifting, as if sharing a painful secret. But there's a chance he won't wake up, or he'll be different. Cognitive damage, they call it. He might need permanent care. Her words were a script, preparing me for the death she'd orchestrated. She wanted me to accept it, to see it as a tragic possibility, not murder. I swallowed hard, forcing my face to mirror her false sorrow. It can't be, I whispered, letting my voice crack, playing the desperate mother. He's so young, with so much life left, so much to do. Scarlett nodded, her face a portrait of sympathy, her eyes gleaming with lies. I've been praying non-stop, she said, her voice soft as a lullaby. I've asked Father Thomas to come tomorrow, to give him a blessing. A blessing? For the son she was killing, drip by drip, in this very room. I wanted to lunge at her, to tear her apart with my bare hands. Instead, I squeezed Robert's hand, my tears falling onto his wrist. Can I have a moment alone with him? I asked, my voice barely steady. Scarlett hesitated, a flicker of suspicion crossing her flawless face. For a heartbeat, I thought she'd refuse, that she'd seen through me. But then her mask returned, and she nodded, all false kindness. Of course, Doris, she said, standing with graceful ease. I'll grab some coffee. Want some tea? Something warm? I shook my head, unable to speak, afraid my rage would spill out. I just want to talk to my son, I said, my eyes fixed on Robert. She left, her heels clicking softly, the door closing with a gentle thud. I collapsed onto the bed, hugging Robert carefully, avoiding the wires. Forgive me, I whispered into his hair, smelling of antiseptic and illness. Forgive me for not seeing it sooner, for not protecting you. I swear I'll save you, my love, even if it's the last thing I do. I kissed his forehead, his skin clammy under my lips, and felt a faint tremor. His eyelids fluttered, a tiny sign of life, and I clung to it like a lifeline. The door opened again, and I braced myself, expecting Scarlett's return. But it was Letitia, pushing a cart of medical supplies, her eyes sharp with purpose. She gave me a subtle nod. There was news, something critical. Mrs. Doris, she said, her tone professional for anyone listening. Dr. Stevens needs to speak with you about your son's condition. It'll only take a moment, she added, motioning me to follow. I stood, smoothing my coat, and followed her to a small consultation room. The door clicked shut, and Letitia's calm facade vanished. We found it, she said, her voice urgent, her eyes blazing. Dr. Stevens tested the IV bag. It's laced with warfarin, a powerful anticoagulant. In controlled doses, it's medical. In this amount, it causes internal bleeding. My knees buckled, the room spinning as her words sank in. My son was bleeding inside, dying slowly, while Scarlett played the grieving wife. It wasn't prescribed, Letitia said, her voice tight with anger. Someone added it to the IV after it was prepared. And there's more. We checked the security footage from the last 24 hours, she continued. 3 times, Scarlett entered the room alone, no nurses nearby. In 2 of those, she's clearly seen tampering with the IV bag. We have video evidence, Doris. Visual proof of her actions. My heart pounded so loudly I could barely hear her words. We had her. The recording, the video, the poison in the IV. Have you called the police? I asked, my voice shaking with hope and fear. Dr. Stevens is doing it now, she said, glancing at her watch. But there's a problem. As his wife, Scarlett has legal rights. If she suspects anything, she could flee, destroy evidence, call her lawyer. We need to keep her here, unsuspicious, until the police arrive. How long? I asked, my mind racing to calculate the minutes. 20 minutes, maybe 30, she said. The station's 10 minutes away. They need time to prepare, bring detectives, get a warrant. You have to go back, Doris. Keep her talking. Keep her calm. Do whatever it takes to stall her, she urged, her eyes fierce. I nodded, my resolve hardening like steel in a forge. 20 minutes. I could play her game for 20 minutes. There's something else, Letitia said, pulling out her phone again. We found this in the footage from 3 days ago, in the parking lot. She showed me a grainy black and white video of Scarlett on her phone. She was smiling, relaxed, even laughing, a woman whose husband was dying. No audio, but we zoomed in on her face, Letitia said, pausing the video. Scarlett's lips moved clearly, forming 3 chilling words. Soon I'll be free. My blood ran cold, the truth of her cruelty captured in that moment. She didn't know the camera was there, Letitia said, her voice thick with disgust. It's more evidence, proof of premeditation, of her intent. We'll give it all to the police, she added, pocketing the phone. I stood straighter, a fire igniting inside me. I'm going back, I said, my voice steady, fierce. I'll keep her there, and I want to see her face when they take her. When she realizes she lost, that I'm not the fool she thought. Letitia's lips curved in a small, fierce smile. You're a warrior, Doris, she said. Your son's lucky to have you. I left the room, my steps measured, my heart a storm of rage and purpose. Back in room 312, Scarlett was there, sipping coffee, her facade intact. Everything okay? She asked, her voice sweet, her eyes scanning me. Just paperwork, I lied, forcing a tremble into my voice. Administrative stuff, nothing important. I sat across from her, Robert's still form between us, and began my performance. Scarlett, I need to say something, I said, my voice soft, vulnerable. She looked up, her expression guarded, sensing a shift. I've been unfair to you, I continued, weaving a lie as convincing as hers. All these years I've been distant, cold, maybe even jealous. Her eyes widened, genuine surprise flickering across her face. I know you've tried to connect, and I pushed you away, I said, leaning closer. Seeing Robert like this, I realize life's too short for grudges. I took her hand, her skin warm against my cold fingers, and she didn't pull away. You're the woman he chose, the one who makes him happy, I said. I should have celebrated that, not resented it. Her shoulders relaxed, her guard lowering as she bought the act. Doris, that's not true, she began, but I cut her off, squeezing her hand. No, it is, I said, my voice thick with false remorse. I was afraid of losing him, of not being the most important woman in his life. Her eyes softened, her ego fed by my apparent surrender. If Robert survives, and he has to, I want to start over, I said. I want to be the mother-in-law you deserve, the grandmother to your future kids. Her lips twitched, a hint of discomfort, but she nodded. We talked about kids, she said, her voice careful. Once the business stabilized. Another lie. There were no plans for kids, only for his death. I want to help, I said, piling on the bait. I have some savings. Not much, but maybe enough for a bigger house, a yard for the kids. Her eyes gleamed, greed flickering through her mask of sorrow. You don't have to do that, she said, but her tone screamed for more. I want to, I insisted. When I'm gone, it'll all be yours anyway. I was selling myself as the fool she'd always seen, and she was biting. You're so generous, she said, her hand squeezing mine, her smile triumphant. 15 minutes had passed, 5 more, maybe 10, until the police arrived. We talked of trivial things, future plans, memories I invented on the spot. I played the repentant mother-in-law, she played the forgiving wife. 2 actresses, locked in a deadly dance, waiting for the curtain to fall. Then a noise, voices in the hallway, rapid footsteps, a swell of activity. Scarlett's head snapped toward the door, her body tensing. What's that? She asked, her voice sharp, her calm cracking. I heard it too. The urgency, the authority of approaching law enforcement. The door burst open, and 4 figures stormed in. 2 uniformed officers, a woman in a suit, and behind them, Letitia and Dr. Stevens. Scarlett leapt to her feet, her coffee cup clattering to the floor. What's going on? She demanded, her voice high, panicked. The woman in the suit stepped forward, badge gleaming in the harsh light. Scarlett Fernandez de Salazar, I'm Detective Audrey Ruiz, she said. We need you to come with us to answer questions about your husband's condition. Questions? Scarlett's voice rose, her composure unraveling. My husband's sick. He collapsed. What does that have to do with the police? We've found evidence of intentional poisoning, Detective Ruiz said, her tone unyielding. Toxicological analysis shows dangerous levels of warfarin in his system. It was not prescribed, and was deliberately added to his hospital treatment. The room went silent, the air thick with the weight of her exposure. Scarlett froze, her mouth slightly open, her eyes darting like a trapped animal. That's ridiculous, she said, her voice cold, grasping for control. It's a mistake, a medical error. Hospitals mix up medications all the time. It's not a mistake, Dr. Stevens interjected, stepping forward. We have footage of you tampering with the IV bag on 3 occasions. We have the substance itself, confirmed in the lab, he added. Letitia held up her phone, pressing play, and Scarlett's voice filled the room. I've been giving him crushed pills in his orange juice every morning, the recording said. Here at the hospital, it's easier. I add it to the IV. In a few days, it'll be over. Scarlett's face drained of colour, her eyes wide with horror. She stammered, That's out of context. I didn't mean... We also have your conversation with Mark Delgado, Detective Ruiz cut in. He's being questioned now. We have documents, your search history for poisons. Enough for charges of attempted murder and fraud, she said, her voice like iron. Scarlett's eyes locked onto me, blazing with pure hatred. You, she hissed, her voice venomous. You did this, you meddling old witch. You couldn't just stay out of it, could you? She spat, stepping toward me. I stood slowly, my heart steady, my voice calm as I faced her. I'm his mother, I said, each word heavy with power. A mother protects her child no matter what. You thought I was a fool? A weak old woman you could rob and discard? You were wrong, Scarlett. You underestimated me. An officer stepped forward, handcuffs glinting in the fluorescent light. Scarlett Fernandez, you're under arrest for attempted murder in the first degree, he said. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can be used against you. The cuffs clicked around her wrists, the sound sharp and final. She thrashed, screaming, "This is a mistake! You'll all pay for this! My lawyer will sue you! You have nothing!" she shouted, her voice cracking. But the officers were unmoved, guiding her firmly toward the door. She turned one last time, her eyes burning into me. "You think you've won," she snarled. "He'll believe me when he wakes. He'll think you're crazy, jealous. He always believes me." I smiled, not with joy, but with the certainty of her defeat. "It doesn't matter what he believes," I said. "The evidence speaks for itself." "You're done, Scarlett. Justice doesn't need his permission." They dragged her out, her screams fading down the hallway. I sank into the chair, my body trembling as the adrenaline drained away. Letitia rushed to my side, steadying me, her hand warm on my shoulder. "It's over," she whispered, her voice a soothing balm. "You did it, Doris. You kept her here. You saved him." But it wasn't over. Robert was still unconscious, still fighting. The battle wasn't won until he opened his eyes, until he was safe. I looked at him, my son, and vowed to stay until he woke. I sat by Robert's hospital bed, my hand clasped around his, willing him to fight. The machines beeped steadily, a fragile rhythm tethering him to life. His face, pale and sunken, bore the scars of Scarlett's poison. Yet in that sterile room, hope flickered like a candle in a storm. Dr. Stevens had started detoxification the moment they found the warfarin. High doses of vitamin K to counter the anticoagulant, plasma transfusions to stabilize him. "His body is young, strong," Stevens had said, his voice calm but optimistic. "He has a good chance of full recovery, thanks to you and Letitia acting fast." A good chance. Not a guarantee, but enough to keep me anchored to his side. I didn't leave the hospital. Couldn't bear to be anywhere else. Letitia secured me a pass to stay 24 hours a day, a small mercy in the chaos. She brought me coffee, sandwiches I barely touched, blankets for the cold nights. She was more than a nurse now. She was my ally, my confidant, my strength. Every few hours, Dr. Stevens checked Robert's vitals, adjusting medications. "His levels are improving," he'd say, showing me charts that meant little but felt like miracles. "The treatment's working. His body's fighting back. It's just a matter of time." Time became my mantra, each passing minute a step away from death. Each hour a victory over the poison Scarlett had slipped into his veins. I talked to Robert endlessly, my voice a tether to pull him back. I told him of his childhood, of chasing him through the park on his first bike, of the time he got lost in the supermarket, sobbing in the cereal aisle, of Christmases when he'd tear open gifts, his laughter filling our small home. "Fight, my love," I whispered, my lips brushing his cold hand. "You have to wake up. There's so much left for you to do." Sometimes his fingers twitched, a faint pulse of life beneath my touch. Sometimes his eyelids fluttered, and I clung to those signs like treasures. On the second day, Detective Audrey Ruiz visited, bringing real coffee, not hospital sludge. She sat with me, her presence steady in the quiet room. "I wanted to update you on the case," she said, her voice professional yet warm. "Scarlett, real name Karen Fields, is being held without bail. The charges are heavy: attempted murder, fraud, evidence tampering. Her lawyer, Mark Delgado, is cooperating for a lighter sentence. He's confessed to the property transfer scheme, the forged documents, everything. I nodded, a dark satisfaction settling in my chest. How long will she face? I asked, needing to know her punishment. With the evidence we have, 25 to 30 years minimum, Audrey said. The recordings, videos, toxicology reports, it's airtight. There's more, she added, pulling a folder from her briefcase. We dug into her past. Karen Fields has a history in 2 states: fraud, scams. She targets men with money, manipulates them, then vanishes with their assets. Robert was her 4th victim, not her first. My breath caught. 4th. My son was just another mark in her twisted ledger. The others? I asked, dreading the answer. They survived, Audrey said, but lost everything: homes, savings, businesses. One tried to report her, but she'd covered her tracks too well. She changed names, appearances, and started over with Robert. This time she got sloppy, Audrey said, a grim smile on her lips. Too ambitious, too impatient. That's how we caught her. She showed me photos. Karen with different hair, styles, but those same cold eyes. The other men want to testify, she said. They'll show her pattern of predation. It'll bury her in court. She won't wiggle out of this. Thank you, I said, my voice thick with gratitude. Thank you for taking this seriously, for not letting her slip away. Audrey squeezed my hand. It's my duty, but your bravery made this possible. Your trust in Letitia, your strength in facing Scarlett, that saved your son. Her words stirred something in me, a flicker of pride amidst the pain. On the 3rd day, as dawn painted the room in soft gold, it happened. Robert's fingers squeezed mine, not a twitch, but a deliberate grip. I gasped, calling for Letitia, my voice breaking with hope. She rushed in, followed by another nurse and Dr. Stevens, their faces alert. He's waking up, Stevens said, shining a light into Robert's eyes. Robert, if you can hear me, squeeze your mother's hand again. He did, stronger this time, and tears streamed down my face. My love, I whispered, you're here. You're alive. His eyelids moved slowly, heavy, like they carried the weight of his ordeal. They opened, his brown eyes, those same eyes I'd known since his birth, finding mine. Confused at first, then focused, recognizing me through the fog. Mom, he croaked, his voice barely a whisper, raw and fragile. That single word shattered me, rebuilding me in the same breath. I leaned over him, sobbing, my hands cradling his face gently. I'm here, I said, my voice trembling. You're safe now. It's going to be okay. Stevens checked his reflexes, his vision, asking simple questions. What's your name? Where do you live? What year is it? Robert answered slowly, his voice weak but clear, his mind intact. No apparent brain damage, Stevens said, smiling. It's a miracle. A young body, quick treatment. You got to him just in time. Just in time. Because of Letitia's instincts. Because I'd listened. I sat back, holding Robert's hand, afraid to let go, afraid this was a dream. What happened, Gata? He asked, his voice still hoarse, his eyes searching. The last thing I remember is the office, feeling sick. Then nothing. I took a deep breath, knowing the truth would break him as it had broken me. Robert, there's something you need to know, I began, my voice soft but firm. It's terrible, but I need you to listen until I'm done. Can you do that?" He nodded, fear creeping into his eyes, sensing the weight of what was coming. I told him everything, my words careful but unflinching. How I'd run to the hospital, desperate, only to be hidden by Letitia. How I'd overheard Scarlett and her lawyer plotting to steal everything. How she'd been poisoning him, crushed pills in his morning juice, warfarin in his IV. How she'd planned his death, her voice cold, her heart empty of love. How she'd isolated him from me, lied about me, turned him against his own mother. How she wasn't Scarlett but Karen Fields, a predator with 3 prior victims. His face cycled through emotions, disbelief, denial, anger, then crushing sadness. "It can't be," he whispered, his voice breaking. "She loved me. She was always there. She made my juice every morning, took care of me when I felt weak." He stopped, the realization hitting him like a tidal wave. The juice, her care, all part of her calculated betrayal. "Do you want to hear the recording?" I asked gently, ready to call Letitia. He shook his head, tears spilling down his cheeks. "No, I can't." He cried then, my strong son, sobbing like the boy he'd once been. I climbed onto the bed, holding him as I had when he was small. His pain was mine, his betrayal a wound we shared. "I'm sorry," I said, though the fault wasn't mine. "I'm sorry I didn't see it sooner, didn't protect you from her." "It's not your fault," he murmured, his voice muffled against my shoulder. "I lived with her, slept beside her, shared my dreams, and I didn't see." "How could I be so stupid?" he asked, his voice raw with self-loathing. "You weren't stupid," I said firmly. "You loved her. That's not a flaw." "She twisted that love, used it against you, against us." He pulled back, his eyes red, his shame palpable. "She said things about you," he admitted, his voice barely audible. "That you were controlling, jealous, trying to ruin us. She said you gave her gifts to make her feel small, inferior. Every time I wanted to see you, she'd cry, say you hated her. And I believed her. I pushed you away. I was such an idiot." I took his face in my hands, forcing him to meet my gaze. "You were human," I said. "You trusted the woman you married. That makes you good, not foolish. She's the one who's empty." He nodded, tears falling, and we sat there, mother and son, healing old wounds. "I treated you so badly," he said. "Cancelled lunches, forgot your birthday. I made you feel unwelcome in my home, the home you gave me." "How can you even be here after that?" he asked, his voice breaking. "Because you're my son," I said, my voice fierce with love. A mother never abandons her child, no matter how much it hurts. We stayed like that, holding each other, rebuilding what Scarlett had torn apart. Detective Audrey returned later to take Robert's statement, a painful necessity. He recounted the mornings of weakness, Scarlett's insistence on vitamins, her juice, how she'd blamed his symptoms on work, urged him to rest, dismissed doctors' concerns. Every moment of care was a step toward his death, orchestrated with chilling precision. "The house is still yours," Audrey told him, closing her notebook. "We stopped the transfer in time. The accounts are frozen, your money safe. Your mother's $200,000 investment, the business profits, all protected. An oversight saved you," she added. "You never made Scarlett a beneficiary." Robert looked at me, horror in his eyes. "Mom, your money. I almost lost it all." "But you didn't," I said, squeezing his hand. "We saved it. Together." "I'll testify," he told Audrey, his voice steady despite his pain. I want her to pay everything for the lies, the poison, the years she stole. Over the next days, Robert grew stronger, colour returning to his cheeks. His muscles regained their strength, his eyes their spark. Letitia visited every shift, her presence a comfort to us both. I owe you my life, Robert told her, his gratitude raw and unending. Just doing my job, she said, but we knew it was more than that. She'd risked her career, followed her instincts when no one else did. 6 months later, we walked into the courthouse, arm in arm, united. Robert wore a grey suit, looking like the man he was before Scarlett's betrayal. I wore an olive green dress, chosen not for vanity, but for strength. I wanted her to see me, unbroken, the mother who'd outsmarted her. Scarlett, Karen Fields, sat at the defense table, her beauty faded. Her hair was dull, her skin pale, but her eyes still burned with cold defiance. She glared at us, her hatred a tangible force, her mask finally gone. The prosecutor laid out the case with devastating precision. Letitia's recording of Scarlett's confession echoed through the courtroom. Security footage showed her tampering with the IV, her movements deliberate. Toxicology reports confirmed the warfarin, lethal in its calculated dose. The 3 other men she'd scammed testified, their stories eerily similar to Robert's. Letitia spoke of her suspicions, her sister's death, her fight to save Robert. Dr. Stevens detailed the poison's damage, how close Robert had come to death. Audrey presented the fraud, forged documents, Scarlett's search history for poisons. The defense tried to discredit us, claiming the recordings were illegal, the evidence circumstantial. But the truth was too strong, too clear, too damning. When I took the stand, I faced the jury, my voice steady despite my tears. I told them of the hospital, of hearing Scarlett's plan to kill my son, of the pain of being called nothing, of realizing my sacrifices were her prize. I felt the world ending, I said, my eyes locked on Scarlett. But I also felt rage, a mother's rage for her child's life. She thought she could erase me, steal everything, kill him. She was wrong. Robert's testimony was the hardest, his voice breaking as he spoke. I loved her, he said, or the person I thought she was, a person who never existed. She poisoned me, body and mind, and I'll carry that forever. The jury deliberated for 3 hours, returning with a unanimous verdict. Guilty, the foreman said, on attempted murder, fraud, document falsification. The gavel fell, a thunderclap sealing her fate. 32 years in prison, no parole for 20. As they cuffed her, Scarlett stopped by our table, her eyes blazing. "This isn't over," she hissed. "I'll get out, and you'll pay." Robert stood, his voice calm, his strength reclaimed. "You have no power over me anymore," he said. "You're nothing now." Her face crumpled, the weight of her defeat crushing her ego. They led her away, her venomous glare fading into the distance. Outside, Robert spoke to reporters, his voice strong, his story a warning. "My mother, Letitia, and Dr. Stevens saved me," he said, his hand finding mine. "Mum, forgive me for the years I pushed you away, for forgetting you." "You already have," I said, tears in my eyes. "You're here. That's enough." 3 months later, we sold the house, its memories too bitter to keep. With the money, Robert bought a bright, modest apartment. The rest went to a new purpose, a foundation called Vigilant Mothers. It helped victims of fraud and abuse, offering legal aid, counseling, shelter. Letitia joined us, training nurses to spot signs of poisoning, to trust their instincts. In the first year, we saved 17 families, 17 stories that could have ended in tragedy. I, Doris, once invisible, became a voice for those silenced by predators. I spoke at hospitals, community centers, sharing my story without shame. The shame belonged to Karen Fields, to the monsters hiding behind charming smiles. Now, in my new apartment with an ocean view, bought with my reclaimed savings, I feel peace. Robert visits every Sunday, and we cook, laugh, plan a future untainted by her lies. That night in the hospital, when I heard murder whispered in a hallway, changed me. I found a strength I didn't know I had, a courage I'd never needed before. I am Doris, 66 years old, a mother who fought and won. And in that victory, I found not just my son, but myself.